Welcome back. The following is an essay I wrote several years back for the Atlas Shrugged essay contest. I'm after a man whom I want to destroy. What man? Robin Hood. He was the man who robbed the rich and gave to the poor. Well, I'm the man who robs the poor and gives to the rich. Or to be exact, the man who robs the thieving poor and gives back to the productive rich. Ragnar is one of the primary strikers in the novel Atlas Shrugged, a philosopher and pirate. While he isn't the kind to deliver 4-hour speeches, Ragnar's limited dialogue in the book shows that he clearly has a keen view of the world and much insight to share. Robin Hood was one among several inspiring legends of the time in England that were both causative and symptomatic of the growing push for freedom and individualism in the nation, a push that eventually led to the Magna Carta and later freed the nation from the shackles of the Catholic hierarchy, which bears so much responsibility for the state of Western civilization in the Dark Ages. Robin Hood was a young lad. Though he followed the rules, customs, and paths his relatives and society had placed for him, he had individualistic leanings and a sense of kinship with the local outlaws, the Merry Men, and their leader, Will o' the Green, a lord who lost his station because of political matters. Raised for part of his youth by an uncle that wanted him as a replacement heir, Robin eventually competed in an archery contest and won. The unspoken rule of the collective was that the rewards all be given to the sheriff's daughter. Robin defies convention and makes his first act as an individual, opting to give the arrow to the spectator he favors, Maid Marian. This is one of the first examples in Western literature of the selfish choice of love over the selfless societal duty. This action inspires the fury of a number of people and is the catalyst that ultimately drove Robin to life as an outlaw. But it was the envy of the sheriff's daughter that initiated the conflict in the land and directly led to Robin's demise. Shortly after the tournament, Will the Green and his men were betrayed and ambushed. Robin and his friends witnessed this and held, but Will died, not having much choice but to join them, having been framed as a member of the group anyway. After some time, he was appointed their leader. Now, the Merry Men had a very interesting relationship with the society of the time. They were loyal to the King of England, but survived off of eating the deer that were considered his exclusive property. They also opposed the sheriff and his forces for a number of reasons. The most fascinating aspect of Robin's story from an objectivist view, however, was his relationship with the church back then. England was under the oppressive yoke of Rome. This was embodied by the character of the bishop. Robin and his merry men take a rather dim view of the mystics of spirit, and their many encounters with the bishop are early signs of the Protestant spirit in the nation that centuries later would free some of Europe from the hierarchy and eventually contribute to the Enlightenment. What I actually am, Mr. Reardon, is a policeman. It's a policeman's duty to protect men from criminals being those who seize wealth by force. But when robbery becomes the purpose of the law, then it is an outlaw who has to become a policeman. Now let's drop this whole Robin was a thief thing. No, like Ragnar, Robin operated as a policeman in a society where the corrupt order acted as thieves. He was a traitor and sometimes protector, like Ragnar, enacting his own form of justice based on his philosophy and conscience. If an individual or group entered Sherwood Forest, they would be charged a toll. The amount varied. If they were honest when asked how much they possessed, they were charged a tenth of what they carried. If they lied, they lost everything. It so happened that the political and religious authorities, who were rich off of extorting the people, tended to lie, while the poor didn't. Other times, when out of the forest, they would often sell things, though frequently in a way that mocked their opponents. This arrangement, though undesirable, wasn't outright theft, but a trade. Honest folks would never be bothered again when passing through the forest, and would even receive protection. Dishonest people would often spend a night in the lair where they received fine wine and had the king's venison to eat. There is no record in the original stories of Robin Hood and the Merry Men targeting the rich for their riches, nor do they appear to bother any person who acquires their money from means other than extortion. Neither is there any case of them giving altruistically to the poor. The closest example was a large personal 1-year loan they offered to a knight in debt. The knight just so happened to be in debt to the bishop, and the bishop passed through the forest about the time the debt was owed. All of his money was retrieved, which exactly totaled the debt, and they turned down the knight's offer of payment, though accepting a few valuable gifts. The Merry Men were also sympathetic to people at the time who suffered because neighbors, authorities, family, or the church didn't respect their self-interest. One example is when they stopped a lovesick man from hanging himself. The man's beloved was being forced to marry a man of status, and the ceremony was to be officiated by what a surprise, the bishop. Robin and his men infiltrated the proceeding and forced the bishop to marry the proper lovers at arrow point. In short, like Ragnar, Robin Hood was a true proper example of that term social justice, although he has since been perverted into the figurehead of one of the most common interpretations of that phrase, that is, the redistribution of wealth. Ragnar as well exacts justice on this scale. It's his foremost purpose, preventing the beggars of foreign people-states from receiving aid via the government's use of tax money, often extorted in unjust sums and forms such as income tax. The opposition to government theft by force is perhaps the most pointed similarity between the two. So why must Ragnar kill Robin Hood, and what does he mean? Ragnar must kill the altruistic symbol that Robin Hood has become in our culture. Society has used him to promote the most base of lawlessness, theft, as long as it benefits the poor. He must wake the world up to the cannibalism that is so glorified and protect the interests of the productive, the people with selected sacrificial lambs. Since he cannot kill the legend on his own, he does the next best thing. He stymies all attempts to prop up foreign parasites with material aid, and as a result renders these charitable acts of the looter system quite impotent. As a pirate, Ragnar could do a lot of altruistic good for America by seizing the property. He could either return it to the poor masses, who could make use of it. Certainly, he could do something about that pesky copper shortage, or he could use and sell it at his leisure, the spoils of war and such. But Ragnar sticks to his philosophical principles, choosing to trade the cargo for gold, which he delivers to the prime movers and strikers in direct proportion to their income tax, treating taxation like Robin Hood as a form of theft. The giving to the rich or to the poor reflected who the tax policies of the era targeted, and who was rich, the bullies and parasites of the Dark Ages or the producers of America. Ragnar also sunk a ship containing D'Anconio copper at Francisco's request, aiding the striker in reducing the value of the empire looters around the world were seizing piece by piece. Ragnar's work sends a fitting message to the world, although few grasp its meaning, and this ignorance contributes to their fear. Ragnar clearly shows himself to be a colleague of Galt, and Francisco, like Galt, he demonstrates a firm belief that man must not live for his neighbor, and like Francisco, he understands that it is not money that is the root of all evil, but pursuit of the unearned. Though his role is small in the book, his mission and that of all the other strikers succeeded, as the collapse of America leaves no room to deny the redistribution of wealth and the many policies related to it were responsible for this new dark age. So one could imagine shortly after he ended the book both the prosperous strikers of Galt's Gulch and the citizens of the fallen nation crawling in the dark chaos of their own making would ask, "What did Robin Hood do for me?" A question sporting dual answers.